Now, Pastor Makhuba of the Unity Fellowship Church says the government's proposed amendment to the Health Act to accommodate COVID-19 is discriminating. Makhuba says the Christians' constitutional rights have been violated for some time during COVID-19 regulations. Joining us to tell us more about the proposed amendment and the impact that it's had on the church is Pastor Makhuba. Pastor, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us. Perhaps just take us through what your issue is, specific issue is with the proposed amendments.
Greetings to you, Ntokozo, and greetings to the viewers. With the proposed Health Act amendment, there are several problems that we see with it. Number one, it is an extension of the state of disaster. So it is like South Africa will remain under these strict regulations. And when we look at it, countries are moving from strict regulations, they are relaxing their regulations, but South Africa seems to be going back. We seem to be going backward because here we are, we want to maintain the state of disaster. And when we look at the regulations or the rules that are now going to be passed into law, if they do pass, we see that it's going to be worse for the people of South Africa. Because when you look at the proposed amendments, you see that there are things like when we talk about gatherings, there are going to be limitations. You cannot exceed 1,000 people in a venue, or which is indoors, or 2,000 outside. So there is a question there that if you are a church, how do you tell number 1001 that go back? Because it is said that if people do not have vaccination certificates, it means that they cannot exceed that 1,000. So how are we expected to deal with it as the religious community? It sounds like now we are going back. We have got another form of apartheid now. We've got another form of discrimination where people now are being divided, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. And as church people, you ask yourself now, who are you going to obey? Are you going to obey the rules of God that are written in the Bible that people are supposed to come and gather together? Or are you supposed to obey government that is saying that if you exceed 1,000, there is a problem, you can be imprisoned for 10 years. So there are serious issues with these amendments that are proposed. For instance, if you are having a very big venue that accommodates 10,000, it means that you are only allowed to accommodate 1,000. And they also speak about venue certificates. And if we look at it, it's going to be a problem for people like in the rural areas. Some churches are in tents. Some of them are in the rural areas. They don't have venue certificates. Are we saying that now we are going to close down some churches? We cannot just relax because we know that when it comes to churches, government will come after churches and enforce these laws that they are talking about. And on the other hand, you ask yourself, why does government want to extend this state of disaster? Haven't we suffered enough for 2 years? Because, I mean, when this started, it was like, it's going to be over soon. There were those promises. And now, after 2 whole years, they still want to extend it now, and it's just going to have another name. It's now going to be the Health Act. It's not going to be the Disaster Management Act. So we are really having a problem with that because as church people, from the word go, we complied. We complied and we respected our government so much, and we believed in them when they said that, okay, this is going to be over soon, you're going to go back to church. And we saw them relaxing regulations, restrictions with other sectors. But when it came to the church, it was a different thing altogether.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that, in fact, because the sense that one is getting from the religious community is that government is acting discriminately against the community, as in other sectors haven't experienced the same level of enforcement when it comes to COVID-19 regulations. I'd like for you to just talk to us about why the church feels as though this proposed amendment is as threatening as the church feels it is.
It is true that there is inequality in terms of enforcing these regulations. We know that when they are written like that in the Health Act, they are going to be enforced at church, but not with everyone else. As we saw that during all this time, during these past 2 years, government was not enforcing those regulations on other sectors. And we saw...
Like which sectors?
I'm coming to that.
Sure.
That we saw that they would talk about it to say that, all right, there shouldn't be gatherings that are exceeding this number. But you will see them attending funerals where there are many people. Funerals of certain people were full, and we saw political rallies that were happening where there were many people, and you will find police accompanying the people who were on those rallies, on those marches done by politicians. But when it came to church, we saw police coming to our churches heavily armed. I mean, like in our church, we saw them coming with nyalas, helicopters. It was a show. People got shot at church. 40 people got injured, seriously so. They have not yet recovered. So we know that these regulations will be enforced in churches, but not really in other sectors. And look at it, when they were relaxing regulations throughout, it was like, okay, you can go have your alcohol, but churches are not open. At first it was like that. And we had to keep on asking questions. Why is it like this? Yes, you can go to a mall that is full. It's not a problem, but don't go to church. You can go to school. You can board an aeroplane that is full, but you cannot go to church on Sunday. We saw in different sectors. You can sit in a taxi that is full, but on Sunday you cannot go to church.
I want to come to this because this is the justification that government has presented for the proposed amendments, that even though the South African population, about 60 to 80%, may have acquired some kind of immunity either because of the vaccinations or because of how widely circulated the virus is. Regardless of that, we still have global agencies like the World Health Organization warning us to say that the pandemic is far from over. And this is a statement that has been reiterated by the president, that we are still living with this pandemic. How do you, as the religious community, propose that South Africa moves forward, knowing, with the full knowledge that we still have this pandemic, while trying to protect lives, livelihoods, and curb the spread of the virus at the same time?
Let us look at the numbers right now. In reality, what is going on? The numbers have gone down. That is why people are saying that are we still in a pandemic or have we transitioned? And besides that, if we can say that, okay, there is still this threat, or maybe there can be other outbreaks, we still have the Disaster Management Act, and we still have the Health Act, we still have other acts that can be enacted. It doesn't mean that we just have to prolong the state of disaster in another form as a Health Act. We have all these acts that are there in place to can deal with whatever that is going to happen tomorrow.
All right. Pastor Mukhuba, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us. We are going to leave that conversation there.